Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. Today's side event is on the role of effective stockpile management in preventing illicit trade and diversion, lessons from Sierra Leone. This is a side event organized by the Mines Advisory Group. And my name is Nicolas Florquin. I work here in Geneva for the Small Arms Survey, and I'm very honored to be your moderator for today's event. In recent years, Sierra Leone has achieved strong progress on arms control, including rehabilitation of weapons and ammunition storage facilities, weapons marking, and training in armory and ammunition storekeeping and management. Also in weapons and ammunition destruction and munition safety program. Looking forward, the National Commission on Small Arms of Sierra Leone has developed a national strategic plan on weapons and ammunition management, which sets out key objectives for the period up to 2023. In this side event, we will discuss lessons learned from Sierra Leone with a focus on the importance of partnerships and sustainable capacity building. We will be discussing the role that effective stockpile management can play in preventing the illicit trade and diversion of arms, and how this can enable the implementation of the ATT and other commitments on small arms and light weapons control. And of course, we'll be discussing as well challenges and future plans. In order to achieve this, we have today a distinguished panel of speakers that really illustrates the variety and complementarity of partners supporting arms control efforts in Sierra Leone. I will introduce each speaker before their interventions, but I wanted to already highlight in the introduction, and I think as you have seen in the agenda, that we have representatives of a variety of partners, including of the national government, of the National Small Arms Commission, of national civil society, international NGOs, donor governments, and regional organizations. So we will really be hearing the perspectives from a broad range of partners working together in Sierra Leone, and I think this will really be one of the key contributions of this event. Before starting, please allow me to go through a few housekeeping announcements. First, as you have seen, this event is being recorded, and the Mines Advisory Group will make it available online for future viewing. Second, MAG, in partnership with Sierra Leone and with support from Germany, has just released a report that provides additional background on the arms control efforts undertaken in the country. The report is already available online, and the link will be shared with you in the chat room, so you may consult it and review it for additional information. Lastly, you saw that we have a long list of speakers. They have all agreed to short presentations, however, to allow for questions and answers. We encourage you to use the Q&A box to provide your comments and questions throughout the meeting. We will be going through all the presentations before opening up for questions and answers, but please do provide comments and questions throughout, and we will do our best to address them during the discussion at the end of the event. The event is due to close at 1800 Geneva time, so we think we should have sufficient time to take on your various comments. So with these few words, I think I will get straight to the chase and invite our first speaker to make this contribution. The first speaker is His Excellency Ambassador Lansana Guberi of Sierra Leone. As many of you know, Dr. Guberi is Sierra Leone's ambassador to Switzerland and permanent representative to the United Nations. He is also serving as the president of the 7th Conference of State Parties to the Arms Trade Treaty, and has previously held a long career with the Ambassador Guberi has provided pre-recorded remarks as opening remarks for the meeting, and so we will be listening to him now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, moderator, Mr. Nicolas Florquin, for giving me the floor. Mr. Moderator, in my working paper submitted to CSP7, I pointed out that the efficacy of the Arms Trade Treaty is predicated on the establishment of accountable and transparent arms export control systems, as well as enhancing safe and secure accounting, storage, and disposal of weapons by states. My paper also notes that the ATT creates space for cooperation and assistance between exporting and importing states to combat diversion risks across the life cycle of arms transfer, and as such, collaborative efforts begin with export risk assessments. Accordingly, the second and fifth recommendations of my paper are quite pertinent to the issue of cooperation and assistance programs between and among states. What we envisage in my paper here is that such cooperation and assistance program should not be limited to things like capacity building. Rather, importing and exporting states could collaborate on things like effective arms export control system, arms transfer risk assessment, mitigation measures, post-delivery cooperation to prevent diversions, etc. For example, cooperative mitigation measures could require states to share information of good practices in dealing with the consequences of a shift of location of imported weapons, change in control of ownership of post-delivery materials. If these examples are built into the experience sharing practices among states, we have a better chance of strengthening the implementation of the ATT. At least one of the recommendations in my working paper, which is recommendation number 1, is directed to ATT stakeholders. By that I mean, not only those who are state parties or observer states to the ATT, but also, and this is very important for my presidency, civil society organizations and those states that are not yet parties to the ATT, as long as their efforts in tackling the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons address some of the purposes and objectives of the ATT. All of these parties can benefit, and they do contribute to the effective implementation of the ATT. I'm encouraging this view because although the ATT is not yet a universal treaty, it does have 110 state parties. And the measures I outline in my working paper are consistent with some of the measures and outcomes that we saw from the recently concluded 7th biennial meeting of states, BMS7, on the UN Program of Action to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects. That took place from the 26th to the 30th July 2021. So, moderator, my recommendations on efficient stockpile management to prevent diversion invite state parties and other stakeholders to build on existing measures and explore innovative initiatives. Again, this is an area that we see synergies and complementarity building up. My reference to the BMS7 outcome document and all UN states are called upon to redouble national efforts to provide for the safe, secure, comprehensive, and effective management of stockpiles of small arms and light weapons held by government to prevent and combat the diversion of these weapons, and for the marking of all small arms and light weapons in state stockpiles to facilitate the taking of appropriate measures should losses occur, is also a very fundamental one with respect to the focus of this presidency and the work of the ATT. Finally, let me mention the outcome document, which calls upon states to ensure that all state stockpiles are regularly assessed and that surplus weapons are disposed of responsibly. This is also extremely important and fundamental to the work of the ATT, and it is certainly underlined in my working paper as well. It is the reason why the report by the Mines Advisory Group entitled Partnership and Progress, Lessons in Effective Arms Control for Sierra Leone is such a timely and useful study for us all to understand and learn from. We can learn a lot from this detailed report with respect to the national efforts undertaken by Sierra Leone to build upon efficient stockpile measures and other countries can replicate the efforts that were made in Sierra Leone. So I implore all of you to study this report very carefully, to popularize it, to make reference to it, and to share it widely as possible, so as to share information about what has gone on in Sierra Leone, a country which until a couple of decades ago was enmeshed in this terrible civil war, and has been able to move from that stage to the stage where it is proud efforts in terms of managing diversion, in terms of arms control. It's been hailed by an important report. And I thank you all for listening. Kindly take forward this report. I wrote the foreword to it. I've read it very carefully. It is an extremely important report, and I thank you, and I thank you for organizing this event. And I wish you all the very best in your deliberations. Thank you very much. I'm happy to note, by the way, that at least 6 of the panelists today are my compatriots from Sierra Leone. I will be very, very keen in listening to their views. They are speaking right from the ground in Sierra Leone, and kindly listen to what they have with respect to is a diversity of folks. They are not just government folks, they are people from civil society. And we will be very well served by listening to them very carefully and engaging them on the experiences that they are sharing today. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for these very important introductory remarks and really explaining so well the link and the importance of stockpile management for preventing diversion, and the relevance of this work for not only the ATT but other processes like the UN POA. I think it's also very nice to remember, as he has said, that Sierra Leone deserves a lot of credit for working so hard on this issue, given the history of conflict that affected the country, and how arms transfers at the time, and diverted arms transfers, had contributed to that conflict. So it truly is an amazing perspective that we're hearing today with so many speakers from the country itself. Moving forward, I'd like to give the floor to Emily Mbai, who is with the Mines Advisory Group today. Emily has lived and worked in West Africa for the past 9 years. She grew up in a military family in France and was trained in public administration, holds a master in public administration. She joined MAG in 2015 and has gained strong knowledge and practical experience on weapons and ammunition management through her career with MAG. She's currently managing programs in West Africa and has been traveling extensively between Gambia, Guinea, Mauritania, Senegal, and Sierra Leone. Even though I understand you're not fond of flying, but it sounds like you have the right job to get over that. I think Emily today will discuss MAG's role in the region and its experience in Sierra Leone, and also your perspective on challenges and the ways forward in the country. Please go ahead, Emily.
Thank you, Nicolas, and hello, everyone. I was just in Sierra Leone last week, and indeed I'm a nervous flyer, but I'm actually now made it to Conakry in Guinea, where I'm joining you. So I will be discussing about our partnership with SLENGSA, and drawing from MAG's work in Sierra Leone, I will provide you with key approaches that enhance capacity building and sustainability to weapons and ammunition management. Before I start with my remarks, I would like to say that if my Francophone English accent or my internet connection is not very clear, then I would definitely recommend that you read through the Sierra Leone publication that was just released today, as you will find there are key lessons learned from our work. Globally, MAG has been supporting states in weapons and ammunition management for almost 2 decades, with a goal to mitigate the devastating effects of armed violence by supporting efforts to combat the illicit flow of weapons and working to understand what we can do better to help keep people safe. In Sierra Leone, MAG has actively supported weapons and ammunition management since 2016. During this time, our approach has broadened from solely providing technical assistance to a more broad-based capacity development approach. So our first key takeaway from our work in Sierra Leone is around coordination. In Sierra Leone, MAG works under the coordination of Sierra Leone's National Commission on Small Arms, SLANGSA, and they are the core coordinator of arms control activities. We would like to take this opportunity to commend our partner for their restless engagement and long-term commitment to weapon and ammunition management. We would also like to acknowledge Germany for their ongoing support to our MAG programming in Sierra Leone. We know that capacity and resources are a key challenge for national commissions, though this should not be an excuse for any stakeholders to bypass or fail to coordinate. Another key takeaway from our work in Sierra Leone is the importance of focusing on needs. While we work in a fast evolving environment with competing priorities, needs analysis is a key element to capacity building and sustainable change. Right from the proposal and project inception stage, we encourage donors to focus on needs analysis and emphasize that this is a key expectation for funding to be received. We also emphasize the need for flexibility. We also emphasize on the need for flexibility during implementation to enable course correction if there is any potential for duplication or change in the context. Needs-based solutions and objectives should then be mapped out in a clear plan. The Weapons and Ammunition Management Capacity Building Action Plan developed by Sierra Leone is a strong example of a framework for monitoring progress across time, but also establishing shared priorities between national actors, donors, and implementers. The plan was developed in 2019, and it provides a framework for weapons management activities and lays out key priority areas to target for progress until 2023. Such plan can also be used to demonstrate needs and priorities to potential donors and partners for a joined-up approach. This brings me to my next takeaway remark from our work in Sierra Leone: partnership. The elaboration itself of the Weapons and Ammunition Management Capacity Building Action Plan is a successful example of partnership. It was developed by SLANGSA with support from MAG and Small Arms Survey, with funding from the government of Japan, and printed and distributed with funding from Germany. Partnerships are effective where actors work together to draw on the wealth of expertise available in a complementary manner. The default should not be to ask ourselves, can my organization meet this need, but rather, is there someone we can or should be working with to meet this need? Another key partnership for weapons and ammunition management in Sierra Leone is our partnership with the Center for Armed Violence Reduction under an MOU with ECOWAS, which you will hear more later from our colleagues from the Center for Armed Violence Reduction. Also, I would like to highlight the role of regional and sub-regional organizations, which is absolutely fundamental for our partnership approach. ECOWAS has played a key role in coordination, prioritization, and sustainability. Again, you will find key lessons learned in the publication, but I would just like to conclude with key recommendations drawing on our experience in Sierra Leone. All states should maintain commitment to initiatives that combat diversion, including stockpile management, and embed these in sustainable capacity development. This requires long-term engagement by national authorities and donor states, which will be its most resource efficient when linked to clear strategies and milestones. Successfully addressing arms control on the long term requires a partnership approach and a true collaboration between states, institutions, civil society, and the international community. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Emily, for these insights and very important points. Thanks also for highlighting the importance of partnership and of long-term engagement, I think, from the survey's perspective and the work we did with you in Sierra Leone. And also in other countries in the region, it's quite clear that producing a long-term action plan, even like a 4-year plan that requires a lot of work and consultation to be sure to have the right people around the table, the right partnerships, and also to really identify the needs as collectively discussed by the right national institutions and organizations. And so these are all points that resonate a lot, I think, to us as well. So thanks very much for highlighting them. I would now like, to turn to our next speaker, Philip Alpers. Philip Alpers is an associate professor, and he's also the program director at the nonprofit Center for Armed Violence Reduction. He's the founding director of gunpolicy.org, which is a resource that many of you will know from searching for information on gun violence and gun policy worldwide. He has been a member of government and other delegations to the UN Small Arms Program of Action and to the Arms Trade Treaty processes since the beginning of both of these processes. Philip, as Emily has already highlighted, he will introduce the Arms Tracker Register today for us, which is one of the solutions being rolled out in West Africa in terms of record keeping. So Philip, please go ahead, you have the floor.
Thank you, Nicolas. Back in 2006, the ECOWAS Small Arms Commission required each West African state to install the convention, I'm sorry, not the commission, required each West African state to install its own national digital record keeping system to prevent the illicit diversion of weapons. That was 15 years ago. In the same period, the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs reported persistent requests for international assistance from states trying to build their capacity for record keeping. To fill this pressing need for such a baseline requirement, our center developed Arms Tracker. Arms Tracker is a digital record keeping solution for arms, ammunition, and explosives, designed specifically for state agencies with limited resources. Now, today, Sierra Leone, the ECOWAS Commission, Burkina Faso, and Liberia all lead the deployment of Arms Tracker across West Africa. A database such as Arms Tracker is also a prerequisite for other categories of international assistance. For example, stockpile management, marking, and tracing. The data collected in Arms Tracker then makes it possible to design each national arms control system based on a credible body of evidence. Now, if detailed information is not available from, if detailed information concerning known firearms is not readily available to the appropriate agencies or officials, they'll find it hard to do their jobs effectively. And that is to prevent illicit weapons from circulating and protect the community. This problem becomes even more acute when it's the government stockpiles, armories, and magazines themselves which leak weapons, as opportunists exploit loose systems to profit and to avoid detection. Record systems that rely on each government agency to keep its own paper logbooks or spreadsheets are simply not up to the task. Instead, Arms Tracker follows arms and ammunition through every stage of use, from place to place, from start to finish. Arms Tracker installations with Sierra Leone's law enforcement, military, and other agencies will also aid compliance, not just with the Arms Trade Treaty, but with all applicable regional and international arms control instruments. For border control, the Sierra Leone National Revenue Authority's version of Arms Tracker will be purpose-built to record arms and ammunition imports and exports, transfers, and transshipments. Then, when periodic reports fall due, any state agency equipped with Arms Tracker can quickly print much of the information required to comply with the Arms Trade Treaty and with many other international arms control instruments. At the Small Arms Division of the ECOWAS Commission in Abuja, Arms Tracker is already installed. It's ready for data input from government agencies across 15 ECOWAS member states. The aim is to fully realize a regional network for arms and ammunition data to implement the commitments agreed in the 2006 Small Arms Convention. Now, the development of Arms Tracker couldn't happen on its own, of course. It's supported by grants from the United Nations Trust Facility supporting cooperation on arms regulation, otherwise known as UNSCAR, and from the Arms Trade Treaty Voluntary Trust Fund. And as it is for Sierra Leone, for MAG, for SALW and ECOWAS, the bottom line for our not-for-profit centre is to reduce armed violence and to save lives. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thanks very much, Philip, for this presentation and very succinct overview of the offerings of Arms Tracker. I think you make an excellent point that digital arms registers are important tools for record keeping, and it's very, very good to see that some of these tools are now being rolled out in the region. Very nice to hear also that Sierra Leone is at the forefront of these efforts and keeping with its reputation as being at the forefront of arms control. And thanks also for highlighting how this is relevant not only for the ATT, but also can help states comply with their reporting commitments to a number of international instruments. It's a really an important development. Thanks so much. I will now introduce our next speaker. We're very glad to have Mr. Albrecht van Witke with us today. Mr. van Witke has been working with the German Federal Foreign Office since 1994. Since August 2020, he has been the head of division for conventional disarmament, arms control, and confidence and security building measures worldwide, as well as preventive arms control at the GFFO. His division is the one responsible for arms control instruments such as the CCW, Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, the AP Mine Ban, Ottawa Convention, and the Convention on Clusters Munitions. And his division also follows small arms and light weapons and lethal autonomous weapon systems. Mr. van Witke is also very familiar with the Arms Trade Treaty, having himself served as the deputy head of the German delegation that negotiated the 2013 ATT at the United Nations. Mr. van Witke, please, you now have the floor. I understand you will focus on GFFO support to the efforts in Sierra Leone and your also encouragement to have comprehensive and consolidated regional arms control initiatives. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I'm delighted to speak here on behalf of the German federal government, and I would like to thank the Mines Advisory Group for inviting me to today's side event on the 7th Conference of State Parties to the Arms Trade Treaty. Effective weapons and ammunition management has been for many years now at the heart of Germany's disarmament and arms control efforts. We consider this to be an important element to support peace and stability, to prevent crime and terrorism, and to effectively improve the lives of people around the globe. Our efforts are guided by three main principles. Firstly, Germany strives to actively support existing and the development of new international disarmament and arms control norms and standards, such as the ATT. Having been involved in this negotiation, as you just heard, I'm particularly happy to participate in this side event, as normally my work does not relate so much to the Arms Trade Treaty. Secondly, Germany supports negotiating regional exchanges and networks due to the transnational nature of many of the problems associated with small arms and ammunition. Our experience has shown that regionally coordinated processes significantly enhance the effectiveness of small arms control. In the framework of these processes, different dimensions of small arms control are linked. Concrete targets are set, multi-actor approaches are enabled, and regular platforms for interinstitutional and international coordination and exchange are set up, thus leading to better results in fighting the small arms and ammunition diversion problem. Germany is happy to support such efforts in the ECOWAS region, as it has done with the Western Balkans Small Arms and Light Weapons Roadmap and the Caribbean Firearms Roadmap. This model of roadmap processes has also been highlighted in the report of the UNPOA's BMS 7 of July this year. Finally, Germany supports concrete capacity building measures to support the fight against illicit arms trade, as well as to improve states' capacities to control weapons and ammunition and to destroy surplus stockpiles. In our view, stockpile management needs to be worked on in all three of these areas. Naturally, concrete measures to assure a safe and secure stockpile management at a national level need to be conducted. This is why we have been proudly supporting the activities organized by the Mines Advisory Group in Sierra Leone since 2016. The example of Sierra Leone shows that great progress in securing state-held stockpiles and preventing diversion of weapons and ammunition to unauthorized users can be achieved if national authorities with a clear mandate are committed to make this possible. We salute Sierra Leone on their efforts and are happy to now support the rollout of the database Arms Tracker in Sierra Leone that we just heard about in the presentation by Philip Alpers. The example of Sierra Leone, however, also highlights the need for a holistic approach and for regionally coordinated measures. We are all aware that safety and security problems associated with conventional arms and ammunition extend beyond national stockpile facilities. Such challenges need to be worked on transnationally in order to fight this scourge effectively. Regional exchange on experiences and best practices, as well as regional coordination and cooperation, can, to our experience, greatly enhance small arms control and also the control of the associated ammunition. And finally, from our viewpoint, it is essential to also look at the broader picture and consider international norms and standards for stockpile management. This is why Germany is a vivid supporter of the International Ammunition Technical Guidelines, IATG, developed under the UN Safeguard Program, as well as the Modular Small Arms Control Implementation Compendium, or MOSAIC. We believe furthermore that these technical guidelines could benefit from the establishment of an additional comprehensive measure for conventional ammunition management at global level. A group of governmental experts with a UN General Assembly mandate is currently working on this issue and will be finalizing its report and recommendations on the subject next week. We will certainly hear more about this in the course of the following month, in particular at the First Committee. To sum it up, we consider the task to counter the illicit trafficking of small arms like weapons and their ammunition a common task for the whole international community. We would like to reiterate our ongoing commitment and support in this matter. Germany will remain committed to supporting states at their request in improving their weapons and ammunition management frameworks and strengthening connections with regional approaches. For us, the issue of local and regional ownership is a key success factor for any sustainable solution. I'm looking forward to a fruitful exchange today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Van Witke, for these very clear points and vision on how you see the different levels interacting at the international, regional, and national level, and especially the importance for the national level interventions to also work together and be well coordinated, both at the national level through the work of institutions such as national commissions, and we'll hear about that in a moment, but also within regions to tackle the transnational nature of the threats that we're talking about. So thank you very much, and also for reminding us of Germany's support to states who require assistance in this domain. So thanks very much for your inputs. Let me now introduce our next speaker, who will be speaking on behalf of the Sierra Leone National Commission on Small Arms. This is retired Lieutenant Colonel Mbade Sogo Bangura. Mr. Bangura is the Assistant Commissioner of the Sierra Leone National Commission and will provide an overview of the country's achievements to date and their impact with respect to weapons and ammunition management. And I believe also he will be looking forward and discussing ongoing challenges and future plans. Please, Lieutenant Colonel, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much to MAG for providing this wonderful opportunity for us to share with you our efforts over the years in stockpile management in this country. Now, the topic of my presentation, 5 minutes or 7 minutes, I was told, the role of effective stockpile management in preventing illicit trade and diversion of small arms and light weapons, is a case study of Sierra Leone. Now, I'll take you through, because of time, our efforts, so that you have an idea of what we have been doing and what we're still doing to make sure we prevent the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons and diversion of weapons in this country. Now, at the end of our armed conflict in 2002, the state of our military and police weapons and ammunition management systems were in a very miserable state. This was largely due to the devastation of general infrastructure during the fighting, which involved the rebel forces, the military, the police, the civil militia, and the ECOWAS intervention force. Some weapons and ammunition storage facilities were either totally destroyed or severely damaged. This state of affairs called for urgent attention. So, as early as the formative years of the to commence addressing the challenges of stockpile management in Sierra Leone. The main aim was to prevent the illicit trade and diversion of SALW to ensure sustainable peace and post-conflict socio-economic and political reconstruction. Now, the road we have been traveling through down to this present period, steps taken since 2009. Now, in 2009, that was the period starting with the formative years of the present National Commission on Small Arms, before even the commission was established by an act of parliament. Physical stockpile and security management workshop, which identified the PSSM challenges and recommended steps to be taken by the Directorate of Small Arms to address the challenges. So this was the heartbeat of the commission, even before it came to be known as a commission, stockpile management and physical security. Now, after the war,
we're obviously having a bit of a connection issue here. Let's just give it a few seconds to hope that that things come back to normal. I think this is most unfortunate, but perhaps if the colleagues from MAG agree, perhaps we therefore move to the next speaker and hope that the Lieutenant Colonel comes back online in a few minutes and continues his presentation afterwards. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Sorry for
Sorry,
this.
we lost you for a couple minutes.
Yes, sorry about that. Now, the next thing we did was to decentralization and destruction of, in 2016, of about 5,000 unserviceable weapons from military and police armories, together with the remaining armed for development weapons that were still serviceable at the time of their collection. This was also done with the support of the Great MAG. Now, next was the weapons collection and their destruction as and when they are available is one of the ongoing activities of the Commission. MAG has also provided the weapons destruction equipment and trained the markers drawn from both the military and the police. Now we are now independent. We can now do our destruction and weapons marking without outside support, because we now have the equipment and the trained personnel with the support of MAG and AOAV, the first NGO that supported the marking of our weapons here. They provided the first set of 2 machines, and MAG provided the 2 sets of portable marking machines, which we are now using on our own. Now, after clearing our armories and disposing of the destroyed weapons, we then focus on a national weapons exercise, following the ECOWAS standard. To date, all weapons held by our military and police forces have been marked with support provided first by Action on Armed Violence, AOAV, and later taken over and completed by MAG in 2017. Both AOAV and MAG provided marking of the weapons marking. MAG again provided technical support for the commencement of the construction and rehabilitation of our military and police armories. To date, a total of 22 armories have been constructed and rehabilitated. 4 of these armories are combined armory and explosive storehouses, 2 in 1, that is. This ongoing support by MAG is going side by side with the training of armory managers and storekeepers on record keeping. Now, with the support of Small Arms Survey, we now have a weapons and ammunition management guideline document, as well as our updated national plan as our roadmap guiding our weapons and ammunition management intervention. Somebody mentioned this just now, Emily mentioned the ammunition and management capacity building for Sierra Leone, which was supported by Small Arms Survey, and also the national action plan, which we had at the beginning of the early years, during the early years of the commission, has now expired, and we need to update it. But we are still using because it's still relevant, or some aspect of that action plan is relevant. Now, between July 2019 and December 2020, 70 tons of expired and dangerously degraded high explosives and hundreds of thousands of small arms ammunition were destroyed in a planned demolition exercise. Thanks to the initial support of MAG for doing the assessment that brought to the fore the need for urgent action to avert a then pending monumental catastrophe in the city of Freetown. The planned demolition was done with support from both the UK and US government, but MAG supported us in blowing the whistle that woke up the military and the government to rise to the occasion. Now, the Commission has recently conducted a national survey of local manufacturers and repairers of shotguns. The objective is to prepare a comprehensive register for their activities to be monitored and regulated to prevent their product finding their way into the illicit market and be diverted to terrorist groups, possibly. And presently, the Commission is doing a nationwide popularization of the Arms Trade Treaty and training members of the Defense and Security Forces, Customs, Civil Society, Office of National Security, and the National Revenue Authority deployed at the border crossing points on the implementation of provisions of the ATT on the prevention of smuggling and diversion of weapons and ammunition into Sierra Leone. Now, because we are limited for time, I'll go to the challenges quickly. Now, we have challenges. Now, the remaining military deployment areas in need of armories, 32 the remaining areas for intervention. The remaining police locations in need of armories is also 32. So 32. That is one of our greatest challenges. Now, the relocation of the military central arms depot in Moritown to a new location outside the city is very, very key. This was the depot in which the 70,000 tons of high explosives were kept, where they degraded and they were at a dangerous level before the intervention came in that took them out of the city and they were demolished in a planned exercise. Now, the arms tracker, as you mentioned, is not available for use by security operators so that we can track whatever arms have been attempted to be smuggled into this country. Now, before I close because of time, I want to express on behalf of my commissioner and the entire membership of the commission and Sierra Leone, I thanks to MAG that has been a faithful partner, and also other organizations like Small Arms Survey, ECOWAS, and the UNDP, and the AOAV, and others as well, for their tremendous support to make sure Sierra Leone does not go down the road it went down between 1991 and 2002, 11 years of terrible war. So now I want to register my special thanks to two ladies. Now, the first one was Nicole, who was here with us. She's a citizen of Sierra Leone, conferred the citizenship of Sierra Leone to her. And also now, the new one now is Emily. I want to say thanks to you for your support to Sierra Leone, and I hope you will continue. And I hope the ATT will also turn their attention to Sierra Leone, because small arms and light weapons are in the list of weapons within the conventional weapons scope. So I thank you very much, because I have only 7 minutes to do. Thank you. Now, you asked me to send you whatever questions you want to ask, but I'm not going to ask you to ask me a question. For my presentation, you can now think of what to ask, so that I can be supported by my commissioner and the program officer. They are around me. They will work as a team. That's why they are here with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Colonel, for this very in-depth overview of all the work you've done over the past 18 years. And just to remind our participants who joined us along the way, there's also a report that came out just yesterday, Partnerships in Progress, Lessons in Effective Arms Control from Sierra Leone, published by MAG and in partnership with Sierra Leone and with support from Germany. And that also provides a very good historical background on all the efforts made by Sierra Leone, its achievements, and a lot of the challenges as just outlined by the Lieutenant Colonel. I mean, I think you made very important points. I would just like to, just two things that strike me from my background. When you said that the former National Action Plan is expired but is still being used, I think that's, well, first of all, there's a clear need there, I think, that you expressed, but it's also quite interesting that you value these documents so much that you still use them after they expire. So I think, you know, it showcases that these are very important policy documents for countries moving forward in prioritizing their needs and interventions. So I think that's something we can discuss later during the question and answers. And also, I think the point you made about the work to demolish an ammunition stockpile in Freetown as a preventive measure. So it's not only about diversion, it was more a humanitarian concern to prevent an explosion. And I think this links up very well with the humanitarian aspect of arms control, with these unplanned explosions having potentially some very dramatic humanitarian effects, as we have seen recently in other parts of Africa. But there you intervene before to avoid such a disaster. So really congratulations on this, and thanks for reminding us of the humanitarian relevance of your work as well. I think your thank yous were heard, and I think I will turn now to one of the people who you thanked the warmest. I will introduce you now to Ms. Adenike Cole, who's our next speaker. Adenike is a former primary school teacher who became engaged with civil society organizations in Sierra Leone, working notably on human rights and gender issues. From 2011 to 2015, she became the National General Secretary of the Young Women's Christian Association, where she worked to support women to embark in agricultural and trade-related businesses. In 2015, she joined the Sierra Leone Action Network on Small Arms, where she continues to work on women's issues, but this time in relation to small arms, but also does very interesting work engaging with local gunsmiths and their families. So I invite now Mrs. Adenike to give us her perspective from a national security angle on the main achievements and challenges for Sierra Leone. Please, Adenike.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I want to take permission that I turn off my video. It is a little bit unstable, so I don't want to be cut off during the process of my statement. I'm asked to be excused, please.
No problem.
Yes. Okay. I have been asked to look at the gender impact of small arms and light weapons on communities within the context of effective stockpile management in eradicating the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons. As previous speakers have already said, Sierra Leone is a post-war country. We experienced one of the most brutal conflicts, and it's almost 2 decades after the war, and we're still grappling with a couple of things. Inclusive is effective stockpile management, because we know that will prevent the misuse of small arms within domestic and public spaces. We know that situations as such, almost everyone in the community, irrespective of age and sex, is affected. But in the case of women, we are specifically affected more, as well as children. A lot has been done on arms control. We've just had Lieutenant Colonel Bangura giving a highlight of the range of progress that has been made, thankfully, ranging from rehabilitation of weapons and ammunition storage cities, marking, training, stockkeeping, everything to promote safety programming. But amidst all of that, I want to highlight that Sierra Leone has been a signatory of a number of international instruments that relate in engendering processes, of which small arms and light weapons is also inclusive. We also have a number of national policies and frameworks. Now, after the war, we had a TRC, which made a number of recommendations that will address issues evolving around women. And these recommendations geared towards conflict prevention and resolution, as well as active inclusion and participation of women. There's also the UN Resolution 1325 that has to do with women, peace, and security, which also requires a safe space for women's inclusion in governance, participation in decision-making, role in preventing armed conflicts, and holding perpetrators accountable. But I want to emphasize that when it comes to the aspect of arms and arms control, I beg your pardon, the space is mostly male-dominated. As an institution, SALW has been a key strategy. Because armed conflicts could be so complex and there could be many actors involved, we desire a collaborative approach. Apologies. We require a collaborative approach. No one entity can do it alone. So you have different actors, stakeholders working in a coordinated manner, so we can collectively have the results, thereby maximizing our outcomes and impact, bringing together men, women, boys, and girls to better contribute to a sustainable peace and security. Now, despite that fact, the fact that in a gun violence, the entire community suffers, as I said before, the Sierra experience has proved to us that in an armed conflict, women and girls are particularly affected either because of their status in society or because of their sex. So in times like this, there is disintegration, families are torn apart, men, women, and sometimes even children are abducted, they are coerced to be part of the combat, people are displaced, homes are destroyed, and women particularly are left vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. So in Sierra Leone, a greater percentage of the casualties of the war were women, of which women are children, were civilians, but the greater majority were women and children suffering from an increase in gender-based and domestic violence. So what have we done to help to change the narrative? Our work around research, though minimal it could be, conducting baselines helps you to know the direction you want to go. Advocacy. There has been a lot of constructive engagement with different stakeholders in addressing emerging issues. And of course, public education and awareness raising, building capacities. These interventions are mostly within the framework of these existing instruments, treaties already signed, ratified. So we contribute towards achieving what has been stated there. So that specifically evolved around women. Now, the reason being that, as I said before, women are uniquely impacted by gun violence, so they must be significantly included in the search for solutions. Our interventions are not one-dimensional and limited to the promotion of women. Reason being that we do not want our activities to be perceived as an attack on the masculine self-image. The men also have a role to play. It is just that because the women are not always very much involved, so sometimes we have to involve more women. So social justice can only be achieved when the problems of both men and women who are both economically disadvantaged, socially marginalized, and also are without rights are mitigated. Now, interventions made and lessons learned from them. Now, over the years, courtesy of UNSCA, we did some work with local craft producers who are also playing a role on the illicit trade flow of arms. So they were trained on the Arms and Ammunition Act, which requires them to obtain licenses from the National Commission should they wish to manufacture arms. Otherwise, they were encouraged to have alternative means of livelihood. Also, courtesy of small arms survey, we were able to do like a tripartite agreement, stakeholders, blacksmiths with the commission and civil society, so they know it was like taking the commission to the people. That was piloted in Kono, so that the people will be able to find alternative ways, because at that time, the commission was not centralized. So they have the contacts and work with them. And also bringing on board the Office of National Security, which is mostly decentralized and a very strong partner of us as civil society and the commission as well. Now, the lessons learned from that is that some of this craft production that is done as a trade, it is hereditary. It passes from generation to generation, and so it is not really easy to be extinct, because it's like from grandfather to father, and it goes on like that. And also, the craft production engaged is mostly for economic reasons, because when these blacksmiths produce maybe a wheelbarrow, or they become fabricators for some kind of agricultural implements, what they gain as financial benefits is much lower than what they have when they do manufacture a craft, a gun. And so we realize that if they have alternative means of livelihood, it is one way that will be able to minimize the illicit flow of arms control, particularly that which they do manufacture. We also have been able to know and understand that the women serve as whistleblowers, even with the spouses of the craft producers. When you talk to them, they're able to, once they have built a confidence, they're able to share information that even affects, because they are also scared sometimes. So the husband do not use the gun when they have their own domestic challenges. So these are some of the lessons that we learned, which are very important for us, especially when sometimes we have occurrences of political tensions. So if there are arms flowed around the place, it is a danger for us. Also, as part of the Okwati project, okay, SLANSA, together with the Sierra Leone National Commission, consulted with a diverse group of women and gender-sensitive men on issues around women's involvement in arms control processes. And from that session, we were able to know that, first of all, that the number of women in security forces, they do contribute positively in achieving stability. When the woman is put on the table, she takes a diverse perspective. She looks at the economic aspect, the social, and not just the security. She looks at it within a wider dimension. Women's participation in conflict prevention ensures that peace lasts longer. As a woman, we have a special role that we play as wives, as mothers, as sisters. And so that is what we take to another level and ensure peace lasts longer, because we know that when there is unrest, we are mostly affected. We maximize the progress when arms and gender-based organizations unite to make the change. Some of the organizations that we engaged with, we consulted with, they do not work specifically on arms control, work on gender issues. But when the partner organization working on arms control partner with them, we see that we can be able to have a broad base to move together. As I said before, a collaborative approach is ensured. And so I'll now talk about the major challenge. The major challenge, one, it could be inadequate data. Some work has been done, but there's many more to be done. And so it's more or less like pilot studies that is done and that is used. But thankfully, like the publication that has been done by Max will be a very good literature to review in moving on with our work. Also, access to adequate funding for both civil society and the National Commission, even reasons why you are not able to spread the scope of your research or assessment that's been done because you have minimal funding, and so you can just cover a smaller scope compared to what really needs to be done. And so for us as an entity moving forward, we want to put on the table as a priority women, peace and security as the way to peace. And in partnership with UNSCA, the National Commission, Office of National Security, and other civil society, we hope to implement a project along the border communities that are very porous, and there is a tendency for a lot of problems, if not many things done to mitigate that. We wish to continue advocating and building the capacities of communities so they provide the safe space for women to also be part of the arms control processes. We want to hear the voices around the table when critical decisions are made with respect to arms control processes. The targeted women will be part of early warning and response mechanisms, and also the establishment of border networks as an early structures so we prevent or minimize issues such as organized crime and human trafficking, smuggling, and all of that. They are living there. They are the whistleblowers. They could either be dividers or connectors. Okay, and so treating women as stakeholders, not just victims or passive beneficiaries, is the path we need to take in achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And high on the table as we go towards election is to promote our ballots, not bullets campaign. You have a challenge with the process, you go to the ballots and you vote. You don't need to use a gun. The gun does not change, it only destroys lives. And so we need to advocate for a substantial increase in the budget for the National Commission. There's a lot they have to do. There's a lot that needs to be done, but they cannot do it because the bottom line is they need adequate resources. We agree that it is important for us to have schools, to have hospitals. Everything is important, but if we do not have peace, we cannot go to school, we cannot access the health facilities. We need, it is the aspect of arms control should not only be high on the government's agenda during wartime. Even when there is peace, we need to take a preventive approach. So that is what I have to share. I will just end by saying, with women in the center of arms control process, we are assured of a happy, happy home. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Adenike, for these excellent points and very important contributions, and especially the reminder of how women were particularly affected in the conflict in Sierra Leone, and that when we look at global level indicators, sometimes we fail to capture this because of the nature of these indicators. But clearly, I think as you noted, it's much beyond indicators of battle deaths and these sorts of impacts that we're talking about, and the broader range of impacts that conflict and illicit arms proliferation and use can have on women. Also on the importance of the women's space in arms control processes, and I really liked that you highlighted the need to include both marginalized women and men in such processes to really have a truly inclusive process. I was also very interested in your remarks on craft production of weapons and the work you've been doing. Thinking that craft production is not necessarily, its status is not necessarily very clear under national legislation in a number of countries, and when it's tolerated, well, it can be a source of diversion as well. And so working with families, working with women and wives is also a way of preventing diversion of these locally produced weapons. So thank you for all these excellent points. Yeah, we look forward to the discussion. Speaking of which, before I turn to the next and last speaker, I would like to remind our audience that they can provide questions and comments in the Q&A or chat box, and that we will do our best to accommodate them during the Q&A. Now is the time for introducing our last speaker. I think we've touched upon the need for strong regional coordination in a couple of the presentations already. Clearly, no country can do it alone when there's the potential for cross-border trafficking and issues with control over borders. And so we're very happy to have today with us Dr. Adamu Mohamed Sani from ECOWAS. And Dr. Sani previously worked with a public service in Nigeria for more than 16 years before joining the ECOWAS Commission in June 2006 as a small arms control specialist. He was part of the pioneering ECOWAS Small Arms Control Program, or ECOSAP, that was established in Bamako, Mali, and then joined the ECOWAS Small Arms Division in 2011 as program officer and currently serves as its deputy head. So, Dr. Sani, thank you very much for being with us, and you now have the floor to provide us with a regional perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas, for the introduction. I would like to use this opportunity to actually thank the organizers of this side event, and to particularly also, commend the presidency of CSP 7, which is a permanent mission of Sierra Leone. We are indeed happy that Sierra Leone is making these giant strides in terms of actually, putting in place the best practices, so that they will enhance, the physical security and stockpile management in the country. I would like to start my comments by, expressing the concerns of ECOWAS Commission, which is actually informing the strong, interventions that ECOWAS Commission is making to be able to accompany our member states to actually fully implement, the legally binding instrument in the ECOWAS Convention on Small Arms and Light Weapons, their ammunition and other related materials. As most of us are aware, the convention came into full force in September 2009. And since then, we have had, significant, strides in all our member states across the region in terms of actually fully putting in place not only physical structures that are supposed to control small arms and light weapons, but also implementing key activities. Therefore, one of the principal concerns certainly is the physical safety and security of our armories. We all know the unplanned explosions that had taken place in some of our countries, particularly on the continent. The incident in Nigeria in 2002, most of us witnessed how it happened, and particularly also reflecting on the poor, to some extent, the poor management of our storage facilities. In 2002, when the incident in the Ikeja cantonment took place, we had about 1,100 victims, not to talk of other associated impacts of the explosion. We also witnessed in Mozambique in 2007, in Tanzania in 2011, and in Congo in 2012. These are cumulative instances that we put together, and we're always at the regional level looking at our member states and looking at the very best way to mobilize both technical and financial resources that will allow ECOWAS to support our member states to effectively put in place, regional as well as international best practices, in the management of their armories. At the moment, the current situation in the region, we all know, perhaps a lot of our armories, a lot of our storage facilities are already, in crowded areas. Civilian populations have actually taken over some of these facilities, and we know the consequences of that. So the regional effort is for us to, like you see and you have heard from Sierra Leone, is to be able to mobilize technical support as well as partners that will be able to support national initiatives so that some of these armories, some of these storage facilities that are located in where we have a lot of concentration of our population, so that it will be relocated to safe locations. These are current efforts that we are doing, and I'm happy, within the framework of our collaboration with the Mines Advisory Group, you have heard from the government of Sierra Leone what MAC is doing, and MAC is continuing with that support, to be able to accompany some of our member states as well, to be able to relocate where possible, and where we needed to refurbish, they also stand ready to accompany the process. We see also the current situation in our member states. Most of the storage facilities, the record keeping system is still manually based. We are making effort at the regional level to be able to automate, to support the automation of some of the facilities. So is one of the key provisions, like obligates member states not only to put in place effective record keeping system, but also to have periodic inventory of the armories. And we know the impact of that, if it happens, is to be able to isolate if you have obsolete, and if you have excess weapons in the storage facilities. You need to periodically take inventory of the facilities. So it's an obligation that the convention imposes on our member states. And you have heard from Sierra Leone, which is the subject matter for this side event, what we are able to achieve. The second aspect within the provision is to continue to consolidate on staff training. We need to strengthen the capacities of storage managers so that they will effectively also put in place international best practices in managing, the storage that they have. And the next item is to be able to encourage destruction. Once you are able to have, regular destruction of the excess as well as obsolete arms, we'll continue to have our region, to record, the safety and security that we're all, promoting. Within the framework of actually supporting our member states, the ECOWAS Commission put in place a comprehensive roadmap, PSSM roadmap, which will allow member states to systematically, implement, the provisions in the roadmap and the practical steps that they needed to take, so that, things that are needed to be done in terms of appropriate siting of new armories, and the old ones, appropriate actions to be taken in terms of providing not only physical security, but also electronic security of the facilities, so that effectively, incidences of leakages, incidences of also unplanned explosions are drastically supposed to be reduced. The roadmap is also obligating at the regional level the ECOWAS Commission to mobilize, technical and financial resources so that we can accompany, member states towards achieving this. And this is why there's no gainsaying that MAC is very active. For instance, in Sierra Leone, they are active as well in the Gambia. I must say, currently, Mark is doing a lot of work in the Gambia. Since the fall of the last regime, Yahya Jammeh's regime in the Gambia, the ECOWAS Commission undertook an assessment of the storage facilities in the Gambia, and the revelations were mind-blowing in terms of the practices. So we needed, after his exit, to put in place best practices, and a lot of effort are currently in place to be able to do that. So I want to use this opportunity particularly to thank the German Federal Foreign Office, for providing, significant support to ECOWAS Commission through BICC and MAC to be able to support, the process in the Gambia. And again, we have, through the funding from GFFO, we have put in place a comprehensive 5-year multi-level, competency training that is currently taking place. It has started since 2018. We are encouraging all our member states to be able to have pool of experts, on PSSM. And the federal government of Nigeria provided ECOWAS with the facility, which is a military facility, which currently ECOWAS Commission is bringing in, storage managers from member states for this competency training. This is a 5-year strategic support which is being provided by the German government. We indeed remain grateful for this, and this is one of the key interventions that ECOWAS is providing to our member states, so that when we have effective, pool of, experts, and as well as the storage managers having to be fully exposed to modern methods of managing, their stockpiles, all the incidences, all the concerns, particularly of planned explosions, particularly also leakages, will be significantly abated. The other segment of the strategic support that we are continuing to provide to member states is equipment support. I must say, within the framework of the 10th EDF, European Development Funds, we are able to mobilize resources that allowed us to acquire strategic equipment for reinforcing the storage, the capacities of our storage facilities. We provided not only security, electronic security in terms of CCTV cameras for some of these facilities. We also provided electronic hydraulic shear machines. These are specialized equipment that all the member states, the 50 member states, have been provided with this equipment that will help them to automate their storage facilities, and also put in place appropriate security measures, practical security measures, for some of the armories. The hydraulic shear machines are supposed to help them. I'm happy Sierra Leone has gotten, the appropriate capacities now to be able to, on their own, carry out, destructions, carry out also marking of arms and ammunition in their countries. So in reinforcing this support, ECOWAS Commission provided this equipment for all the member states, so that effectively we also monitor and also have our member states to put in place the best practices that they needed to do. So in conclusion, I would like to say that within the framework of the convention, the ECOWAS Commission has done a lot. We have not only promoted the need for us to have, fully effective and functional national commissions, within our member states, but also because of the scarcity of resources, in our member states, also we are able to mobilize, technical as well as financial support, so that member states can effectively, put in place practical measures towards implementing the key provisions of the convention. And the concerns, of unplanned explosions, particularly is why we are devoting a lot of energies, a lot of efforts towards strengthening the PSSM practices in our member states. I would like to stop here and looking forward to any possible question. Once again, I would like to thank the host for giving us the opportunity and also to commend the presidency of CSP7. Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sani, for giving us this detailed overview of your efforts to support weapons and ammunition management in the region. I was particularly interested in also your assessment of the challenges. Oops, apologies. I had to switch off my videos to improve the bandwidth for a minute there. I am back now. So yeah, I really liked how you also analyzed the key priorities and concerns of ECOWAS. Clearly, the issue of the potential of unplanned explosions is another derivative of poor stockpile management, and the SMARM survey maintains a database of events that went bad and where you have unplanned explosions of these munition sites. Would invite you to consult it for more data on the global nature of this phenomenon. It touches Africa, but also other regions, all regions in the world actually. And so it is great to hear that it's high on the priority for ECOWAS, and as we've heard earlier, that countries like Sierra Leone have managed to take action early enough to avoid such disasters. Also very interested in your remarks on record keeping, and your point, I think, is that it's good to have the data, but what do you do with it then? And it's very important once you have the data to identify obsolete surplus weapons and ammunition and deal with it in a safe manner to prevent diversion or unintended events. So thanks very much for these very valuable points and the overview of your efforts to tackle this from a regional level. We have a few minutes left for discussion. Maybe we might exceed maybe the time by 5 minutes to allow some answers. If you can bear with us, because I think we have a few questions. I would like maybe to start out of courtesy for Philip Alpers, who is up with us very late in a different time zone, to allow him to take 1 or 2 questions. We have one question from a participant about ammunition. We've talked a lot about ammunition. Could you maybe tell us a bit more how ammunition features in a platform like Arms Tracker, and what is the potential? What are the challenges you see for good record keeping of ammunition?
Luckily, ammunition is not hard to record. What it is hard to do is to identify it. There are very few identification marks compared to what you get from a weapon, and so you're reliant largely, if you're lucky enough to have the packaging, that's a great help. Otherwise, you have to sometimes guess at the manufacturer, or at least be a bit uncertain at times as to who manufactured it or what year it was, etc. But as an object, it's just as easy to record as anything else. Of course, there are many clients of Arms Tracker, for example, police, who might record the entry of packages of ammunition, quantities of ammunition into its armory, but then not even try to quantify round for round who used what and where it was shot and so on. So you lose control round by round. But to start with, the main stockpile measure of the number of boxes and how old those boxes are, and how likely they are, according to the experts, to be dangerous in a set of amount of time. That's the sort of thing that a database can hold infinitely, and is extremely valuable to safety measures in the future.
Thanks a lot, guys. Super interesting, and yeah, good to hear that the there are now technical solutions to do this in a more systematic manner. So thanks a lot, and thanks for staying up so long with us. So feel free to go to bed, or you can try to bear with us another 5-10 minutes.
Thank you. I'll see if there are any other questions.
Okay, we have another excellent question about, and I think this is probably for Mr. Van Witke and maybe the colleagues at MAG as well. What would be the best way to ask for the appropriate initial assessments of the existing national stockpile management infrastructure and accordingly receive the relevant assistance in order to enhance it? So what are, concrete, what I understand, concrete vectors to ask for assistance in this regard that would be considered by some of the institutions and donors that fund these efforts? I don't know if Mr. Van Witke wants to address this first.
Yes, I can, or to a certain extent. UNIDIA has produced a weapons and ammunition management self-assessment tool, which I think is very helpful, and I think it has also been used widely in the ECOWAS region. But maybe Dr. Sani Adamu can tell us a little more about that. But this is certainly a very good starting point, because it helps you identify the gaps in your system, in your stockpile management system, and gives you a first indication of what are the areas that you would actually want to work on and could possibly have support for. And then the way we work is not directly giving money to other states to improve their stockpile management, but we normally work through organizations like the Mines Advisory Group or the Small Arms Survey or other groups to implement programs, projects that we then fund. So basically, I think the self-assessment tool is a very good start, and then you would probably need to look for an organization that is able to implement the assistance that you request, and the organizations then usually know how to find us and to make a good proposal to have the implementation of the program.
Thanks very much. Emily, do you want to add something to this question?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think the self-assessment is a great initial step. I would add that from experience, if states have a request, we would ask them to send us a formal letter of request, and we would see obviously the availabilities of our technical teams, and obviously link with regional partners and donors to see how we could support an initial assessment. But this is certainly something that we could do if we were sent a formal request. Excellent,
thank you. I have a question now for Adenike about your intervention on blacksmiths and efforts to offer blacksmiths with alternative options. You're being asked if there are specific examples of such offers of alternative options that worked in Sierra Leone that might be documented and might serve as examples for other countries in West Africa. Could you please comment on that, Adenike?
Yes, Nicholas. Yeah, basically what we did part of the project was like multi-stakeholder engagement, wherein we created a platform for the blacksmiths, the Ministry of Social Welfare, which is mostly responsible for the registration of organizations, the local councils, they're also doing registrations, and then units within the agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture, you have the Sierra Leone Agricultural Research Institute, and also the small holder commercializations. You know, the blacksmiths do a lot of fabrication for agricultural implements. So what we tried, we facilitated the process. If they can come together, maybe form a cooperative and then register, organize themselves better, register, and then they will be able to get some standards of procedures where they are able to do proper procurement, proper bidding within the councils, establish that kind of relationship. But basically that was how far we could go. And because it's like just having the platform, you have the World Vision, other NGOs that work on agriculture, how they could support them. So basically that's how far we went. And in Connaught, some are still grappling with it, but they are getting there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Denike, for these additional details. I wanted to also pick on another question in the chats that relates to the ATT CSP7 President's paper on enhancing stockpile management, and whether Sierra Leone was taking this forward in the country itself with respect to relocating arms to different storage sites or uses within the country. So I think I'd ask the National Commission to respond to this if they can, in terms of their efforts to not only reinforce, I think that's the nature of the question, or refurbish existing infrastructure, but also has there been any efforts to relocate to different storage sites and users? Thank you.
Well, yes, there is effort going on to relocate the central armory depot, which is in the heart of Freetown almost now. Since we congested it on the dangerous materials that were there, but still we have those that are still serviceable, and one day they might become unserviceable and become a threat to human lives again. So there's some effort, and the government is trying to secure the portion of land that we identified with the support of MAG. Because MAG had a very energetic and untiring gentleman who went into the jungle to identify the suitable location for that place to be developed as a central armory storage facility. But the first is to secure the land, because it's a community-owned land. And after that, we now need to secure international support from our development partners, because it's going to be a huge capital intensive exercise, because we have to build structures for the personnel who will be manning the facility, and also to make sure the structures are built just like what MAG is doing. The explosive storehouses MAG is now building together as a combined armory and explosive storehouse is really solid and robust, so that if there's any unplanned explosion, the damage will not be very serious, the minimal damage. So yes, efforts are ongoing to make sure, but we need support from outside, otherwise the government is stretched in terms of financial support to support such expensive projects for the Commission. So let's see.
Excellent, thank you. And I have a question that is maybe also for you, and maybe Dr. Sani also from ECOWAS can comment. But we heard from Dr. Sani that one of the challenges has been, I think he called it staff retention. So when there's capacity building, how do you ensure that the people who are trained stay in position and can act as trainers of trainers? Can do further training. How do you sustain the sustainability of this capacity building? So I wonder if there's any good experiences in Sierra Leone on facing this challenge, because it's something that comes up I know in other countries.
Yes, in Sierra Leone it has been a challenge, but we are trying to go around it to make sure whenever a pool of personnel are trained, we know soldiers go on retirement, and some leave voluntarily, and some die. At present, we have only a few of those who are trained as weapon markers. So now we are planning to carry out our own training train the trainers, because we still have the 2 officers who went out, who were trained, and also those who were recently trained on the use of the hydraulic shear machine. One of them is here with us, the IT officer, and 1 or 2 from the military who went with him. So they are going to train other personnel. So in case they leave, then we have others to take their place. So it's a challenge, particularly with the armory stockkeepers and managers. And sometimes you go to do a compliance visit, we don't find those who are trained in the armories, manning the armories. Either they have left the force or they have been posted out, and we are trying to convince the authorities to make sure those who are trained in that area should remain. But again, the career path has to be developed for them, so that they don't see us being punished, being in a punishment location all the time. Because to manage armories and ammunition, weapons and ammunition is not an attractive thing at all in any armed force, because it's dangerous. The first mistake you make will be the last mistake. So it's not very attractive. So we want to make sure we train more and more personnel. And MAG is now prepared to go with us up country to train those who are in the region, in the southern region, because we have done a lot of training within the city. Now they are saying they too need to be trained out there, so that they can feel the benefit from the training MAG is providing. And let me make this clear. Now we're now having a gender really mainstreaming exercise in the military. When we went out recently to do the compliance visit with Emily in the south, we met a lot of female police personnel in the armories who are clamoring to be trained as armory managers and storekeepers. So that is a new phenomenon in Sierra Leone, because after conducting the gender mainstreaming in weapons management in Sierra Leone, I think the awareness has been created that the female personnel in the military and the police are ready now to work side by side with the men in managing weapons and ammunition. Before now, it was a no-go area for women, but now they're determined to make sure they are also part of the men. But we need more training of these soldiers and policemen. Thank God, before the end of the year, we are going to go with Emily and the training, somebody from MAG to carry out the training where they are located, where they are deployed in the region, so they don't have to come down to the city for the training exercise. So yes, it has been a challenge, but we are trying to make sure we surmount that challenge.
Thank you so much for these very, very important insights. Unfortunately, time is running out, and it's always hard to know when you have such a rich panel how to close an event. But I do want to maybe just ask Dr. Sani if he wants to react to anything he's heard, or want to comment also on this issue of staff retention before we close. Dr. Sani?
Yes, thank you, Nicholas. This is important for us, and ECOWAS Commission is always mindful in terms of the target, the trainee targets. We are always targeting the training schools of our member states for sustainability. You are right. Honestly, our officers are always moving. So we are targeting, train the trainer, courses, targeting the training schools in our member states. Not only targeting the training schools, we have created roster of PSSM experts who are always, after going through the strategic training, the regional training that we're currently undertaking, we put them within the roster. So at any time in the future, we're looking out for instructors. We can easily, safely also pick from there and be able to apply, in terms of training our services in member states. So sustainability is key. I totally agree with you. And ECOWAS Commission is fully mindful of that. And that is why we're targeting, training schools. We're encouraging member states to submit a list of students that are coming for this regional PSSM training. are selected from training schools, so that when they go back, they have also capacities to be able to train, other officers. So I totally agree with this. This is a concern that, if not clearly mitigated, it will be, capacity building endlessly. Even though it's important, we'll continue to deepen, in terms of the numbers, given the available resources. So this is what, Nicholas, I can add up to what our colleague in Sierra Leone said. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, a very, very rich panel, and I think it's all to MAG's credit and its partners to have been able to summarize a lot of this in the report. Again, it's the link is in the Q&A if you haven't yet got it, but I think there's a lot to develop there and unpack, and we could continue this panel for some time, and probably the report could be expanded into a book eventually. But unfortunately, we have to stop here. We're 10 minutes past the finishing line. I would just like to thank all our speakers, thank MAG for organizing this event and inviting Small Arms Survey to moderate it. We're obviously very happy to support it and to also possibly work. I mean, I know we'll be engaging with both MAG and our Sierra Leone partners in the near future as well on some follow-up activities. So thank you everyone for your very in-depth contributions, for showing the complexity of preventing diversion, the importance of partnerships, and the need for comprehensive approaches at multiple levels, showing that diversion is not only about authorizing transfers or not. It's a much broader phenomenon that needs to be tackled from multiple angles. So thank you, everyone. Congratulations, Sierra Leone, for all this work that you have done, and also for your contribution now moving forward with the Arms Trade Treaty. And I wish to all of you an excellent end of the week. Thank you.